Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. This is Benedict Lecca speaking to you from the historic Harrison Room at the Redwood Library in Newport, Rhode Island. I can't be sure exactly where you all are, but today we have a very special presentation. As you know, we have a very expansive view of what the humanities are. It isn't just texts and poetry readings, and we like those too, of course, and image, but it is also music. And we are happy to once again welcome Clemens Teufel as he presents us tonight with Liszt and Chopin in Rapture and Reverie. Now, many of you have had the pleasure of attending one of his concerts here at the Redwood, although virtually this promises to be just as engaging. This is my first Crowdcast, so you'll have to excuse me if I make any technical errors, but you'll be hopefully seeing more of me as I introduce our speakers moving forward. Mr. Teufel has performed around the world with appearances at the Alte Oper Frankfurt in Beijing, at the Conservatory, and the Cité des Arts, which is in Paris. So we are very pleased indeed to have him perform live for us this evening. So thank you very much for joining us. And now I pass it over to Mr. Clemens Teufel. Thank you so much.
Welcome, everybody. I'm so pleased to do this. I would prefer to be also in Newport in the beautiful Redwood Library in Athenæum, but I'm still very excited and grateful that we can do this. Here you see me in my studio where I practice and create, so to say, and I had the technician here to bring the piano up to its best, and so I'm really pleased to be here. I hope you're all doing well in this time, and I think music has been for all of us a very important and helpful element to cope with everything. And also getting together virtually is actually quite nice. It's not the same as live, of course, but it's still a lot of fun. So I'm going to play for you today Chopin and Liszt, and I chose a few pieces that some are typical for both composers and some are not so typical. And I will start with two nocturnes by Frédéric Chopin. And the first one I'm going to play is the Opus 50, number 1. He composed it around 1833. And it is not really a lullaby like nocturnes usually are. It's a very dramatic piece, and in the middle it starts very mellow and very dreamy and poetic, but in the middle it gets very, very passionate. And then as the second nocturne, I play the Opus 9, number 1, which has been composed around the same time. So these are both early works of Frédéric Chopin. He was born in 1811, so he was around 20 years old. And so after the Opus 50, number 1, I will play the Opus 9, number 1, which is a very typical Chopin nocturne. I love that piece. I play it as often as I can. It has a free flowing melody in the right hand, and the left hand is more steady. And Chopin was known for separating his hands and really having a free right hand and a steady left hand. And this piece really is a good example for that. We're now coming to a block of Liszt, so to say, two pieces by Franz Liszt. Chopin and Liszt, they knew each other from the salons in Paris, where they both performed their pieces and mingled and exchanged ideas. And Liszt was very fond of Chopin. Chopin was very fond of Liszt. In fact, Chopin said that he thinks that Liszt performs his own pieces the best. And for me personally, I have always struggled with this idea because Chopin was a very small person, and he was not very outspoken, very introverted person. So he was known for not playing loud at all. And if he played loud, it would be very for a very short period, and then he would go back to a mezzo forte or piano. And Liszt, of course, was the exact opposite. So it's interesting that Chopin said that. The pieces I'm going to perform for you are from the Année de Pèlerinage. It is considered probably the major work for piano by Franz Liszt. It's 3 books, and he composed them when he was traveling through Switzerland and Italy. And interestingly enough, these were composed in around 1835 to 1837, 38. So all the pieces we're hearing are actually in the same period, in the 1830s, composed. And Liszt was traveling and had this phase where he was very much inspired by nature. And the first piece I'm going to play is the opening piece, the Chapel of William Tell. It is called, and Liszt composed it when he got to the landmark, the chapel that they erected for William Tell, who was a Swiss folk hero. And if you're not familiar with the story, William Tell, he was the one who shot the apple from his son's head to free himself. I'll spare you the details, but it is very entertaining. I highly recommend read about it. And William Tell was also very much involved in freeing Switzerland from the Habsburgs, basically, and helping to become its own country. And so there's this chapel where William Tell was able to flee. He was arrested because he didn't obey to the new ruler, to the new governor. And it's, as I said, a longer story, but they erected this chapel. And when Liszt came there, he was inspired, and he composed this piece, which is a very heroic, uplifting piece. And then as a second piece, I'm going to play the 6th piece in that book. It's also the most substantial piece. It's called Vallée d'Obermann. And the Valley of Dobermann is something that doesn't exist. Liszt just invented that. He was inspired by a book by Etienne Senoncourt. And she has, as a main character, this Mr. Obermann, who is struggling with his feelings and trying to find his identity and his way through life. And so this piece is all about the human emotional landscape. And it is really the most substantial of the first book. I don't know if you noticed, but this piece also, it starts in E minor, very dark, with the melody in the bass, and it ends in E major. So Obermann seems to have found a good solution for himself. Yeah, so we're coming to our last piece already. It's going by so quickly. And that is the Scherzo number 2 by Frédéric Chopin. And that piece he also composed around the same time when Liszt was traveling, composed these pieces in 1837. And yeah, there is a lot of interesting things. There are a lot of interesting things to say about that piece. But I think what every pianist struggles, and every teacher has an opinion, and everybody talks about, is the beginning of it. And it's, Chopin said, it is a question which is then answered. And it is written that Chopin was never happy with it. It was never muted enough, never questioning enough. And it is very difficult to achieve because it's fast, and it's always a compromise between getting all the notes out and having clarity, but then being muted. Also, what's very interesting about this piece is that it is very dramatic. It is not at all as dreamy as other pieces by Frédéric Chopin. It's almost violent in some parts. There are these big jumps and chords and octaves, everything in there. Of course, we have some beautiful melodies too, but it is a very passionate, almost loud piece for Chopin, which is why I chose that for my program. And this is also, I have to explain, not the full program I'm playing. I'm a little bit dependent on battery life for the camera at this point, but I'm hoping to perform the full program for you once we're able to mingle again, because I have 3 or 4 more interesting pieces from Chopin list to add. But for today, Scherzo number 2 in B flat minor. Yeah, Chopin's Scherzo number 2. I hope you enjoyed this performance. I am very eager to see all of you live, and I can't wait to travel again and play all the different instruments in the different halls. I hope we can do that soon. I will now hand over to Benedict Lecker, and he's going to let you know what else is on the program. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Everyone, good evening again, and I want to thank Mr. Teufel for an outstanding performance. It's always a pleasure to welcome him at the Redwood Library, and that was really exceptional at dinner time. I want to point everyone to the performance tomorrow, which will be a lecture, essentially, by Professor Richard Bell of the University of Maryland, who will be talking about Hamilton, both the musical and the historical reality behind the musical. So that should be very interesting. And I want to thank everyone again on behalf of the Redwood Library, and wish Mr. Teufel and all of the audience members a very good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you.